political subjects like election fraud and creeping fascism and things like that. The crowd's usually not as big as this one, probably because the subject is sex. Right? Not that sex is unrelated to election fraud or creeping fascism. In fact, I would argue that sex is the heart of the matter and has everything to do with the pathology of the Bush-Cheney right. And I reckon that tonight's speakers will sort of elaborate on that basic point. We have with us tonight Win McCormack, who first I thought his mother was here, and maybe she may be, I don't know. Win is here from Portland. He's the editor, publisher of Tin House magazine, and a Democratic Party activist, which we're not going to hold against him tonight.
Portland, Oregon, or Portland, Maine?
Excuse me?
Portland, Oregon, or Portland,
Portland,
Maine?
Oregon.
Okay.
But hold all questions till the end. That's a very simple one, though. It's Portland, Oregon. He's going to be talking about his new book, You Don't Know Me, which is specifically about, I guess, the secret lives of right-wing Republicans, right?
There you go.
And Dagmar Herzog is here from the CUNY Grad Center. She is a specialist in modern history. She's the author of a number of two very important previous books. Sex After Fascism, and I can't remember the other one. Intimacy and Exclusion. I have trouble with polysyllables. She's going to be talking about her new book, Sex and Crisis, which more generally addresses the sexual revolution. So between the two of the speakers, between the three of us, we've agreed that Win will start because his topic is more specific, and then Dagmar will follow up. The format is that each will read or speak for 15 or 20 minutes, and then as usual, we'll just have a Q&A. This is very informal. Copies of the books are available up at the front there near the cash register, and I urge you to buy copies and have the authors sign them. For now, anyway, please join me in welcoming, I'm going to introduce them both, Win McCormack and Dagmar Herzog.
If you all came here for sex, you're going to have to bear with me just a minute. I made a list of the things that, 8 of the things that the conservative movement and the Republican Party promised they would deliver if they got into power, if they were given the reins of government. The first one is they promised a smaller and fiscally prudent government and balanced budgets. Second, they promised a government whose concern would be the safety of its citizens. Third, they promised a realist foreign policy under which the U.S. would only intervene in foreign areas where its national interest was directly at stake. Fourth, they promised a stronger military and defense posture. Fifth, they promised a law and order government that would enforce the laws of the land scrupulously. Seventh, they promised a government that would uphold the values of objectivity and truth in the teeth of the moral relativism of the era. And finally, they promised to advocate for the sexual values of abstinence, chastity, marital fidelity, and exclusive heterosexuality. Now, under the first one, they delivered the largest deficits in history and the greatest rise in the cost of government in history in both an absolute and percentage basis. The second one, they ignored all the warning signs before 9/11, and they let the city of New Orleans crumble and stay devastated. Third, they they gave us an invasion of a country where the U.S. national interests were not directly at stake or arguably at stake at all. Fourth, they left us with an army so depleted that if there were a crisis somewhere else in the world, we wouldn't have the manpower or the equipment to deal with it. Fifth, they gave us a government that has violated domestic and international law with impunity, including the laws against torture. And by the way, torture is against the United States law, not just against international law. There's a statute in the federal Book of Statutes against it. Sixth, they gave us a financial system in ruins and the making of another Great Depression. Seventh, they gave us, they paid no attention to facts and objectivity in their policy making, and they degraded the value and standing of science. Finally, as for abstinence, chastity, marital fidelity, and exclusive heterosexuality, they gave us this. A 300-page catalog, which I can summarize statistically as follows in here. We did 2 months of research to unearth this. There's a total of 110 examples in the book of their sexual behavior, misbehavior. And here's a breakdown. There's 22 examples of adultery, 10 of transactions with prostitutes, 3 of occurrences of incest, 4 of acts of indecent exposure, unwelcome advances resulting in 6 reports of sexual assault and 4 of sexual battery, 15 cases of child molestation, 13 of involvement with child pornography, 7 of soliciting sex with a minor, 3 of those specifically concerning 5-year-old children, 3 5-year-old children, and 1 concerning a 3-year-old. Grand total, as I said, is 110. Out of that 110, 46, nearly 42%, involve pedophilia behavior. This conduct involves 32 federally elected Republican officials or candidates for federal office, 41 state and locally elected Republican officials, 8 nationally known Republican Party officials, and 23 Republican or conservative activists. And the most astounding number in there, and the one that shocked us when we got the research in, is the number of pedophiles involved. When Republicans come to my readings, I don't know if they're doing that, they say, well, what about Clinton? What about John Edwards? Don't all Democrats do this too? Well, in this book, there's only 22 examples of adultery, but there's 46 of pedophilia, and that's my answer to that. Now, here's something that one of the leaders of the conservative movement had to say. Frankly, history is an ongoing rebuke to secular left-wing values. They can't afford to teach history because it would destroy the core vision of a hedonistic America in which there's no past and no future. That was said by Mr. Newt Gingrich, who has the longest entry in the book of anybody. It's close to 15 pages long. It's 3 or 4 times as long as anybody else in the book. It's headlined Gingrich Family Values. He has his own family values, special family values section. And here are some of the headlines in that section. Gingrich went to Congress by touting his role as a family man. 18 months later, divorced his wife. Forced her to discuss details of the divorce in the hospital while recovering from cancer treatment. His wife had to say, he walked out in the spring of 1980. By September, I went in the hospital for my 3rd surgery. The 2 girls, their children, came up to see me, said, Daddy is downstairs. When he got there, he wanted to discuss the terms of the divorce while I was recovering from the surgery. Another headline, former campaign worker claims Gingrich said Jackie not pretty enough to be president's wife. Former campaign workers reported affairs during his first marriage. One of them said, regarding the first campaign he ran for Congress, which he lost, we would have won in 1974 if we could have kept him out of the office, screwing them on the desk. And here's a story. One day, one of his aides went to take some papers to him and found him in a car. His children were playing soccer nearby, and he had one of the soccer moms